Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Design and Dementia podcast. I'm Dr. Joanna Sun, and today I want to start um, with, I guess, touching on a word that we all use. And it's something we probably all don't agree on, and the word is familiar or familiarity. And when we talk about good design in dementia care, you hear a lot of things like we want it to feel familiar, we want it to feel like home. But here's the kicker. If you ask 10 people what that means, you'll get 10 different answers. And this is real consequences, for the built environment that we design and the lives of the people that reside in it. So my team and I, we've taken this problem really seriously and had a really good look at it. And we've published a scoping review, and I've done it with Dr. Sumio Brannan and Dr. Therese Duan. So this was published in Frontiers in Dementia back in February 2025. And we went back through more than, 30 years of literature, from 1991 all the way to 2023 to figure this out. Finally, what we actually mean by a familiar environment for people living with dementia in aged care facilities or in some parts of the world, nursing homes. So we've screened 245 papers, included 46 from 19 countries, and the first finding alone is worth pausing on. Only 63% of those papers actually define familiarity clearly. The rest use, the word and assume we all knew what it meant. So step one of this paper is honestly a bit of a wake-up call. We've been designing for an idea that we haven't pinned down. Then we try to pin it down. So there are three themes that came through. The first one was a home-like environment, small scale buildings, for some cultures, cottages rather than, than more institute-like spaces like wards. We want to have personal belongings, domestic looking furniture, and a chance to have, your own artifacts, your own photos. You want to have your own life around you as well. The second is a connection to well-being. So familiar environments help people regulate emotion, engage in familiar activities, and also receive person-centered care. These spaces can reduce agitation, lift mood. So lots of benefits, and we do go into more detail in the paper. The link is down, can be found in the blog as well. So the last one is a multi-sensory integration. So when we talk about that, we're talking about, your sight, sound, smell, touch, and importantly, something that we don't really talk about, temperature. So familiar environments don't just look right. They need to sound like home, smell like home, and feel like home. And the place this often breaks down, when we look at the designs and what the literature says in bathrooms, in dining rooms, in hallways, a lot of the literature points out that these are the very spaces where unfamiliar smells, harsh lighting, unfamiliar acoustics, and institute-like spaces, with their fixtures and fittings pile up. And that's where you see the consequences in meal times, in hygiene routines, resulting in people getting really stressed when they try and navigate these spaces. And actually, the two little more bits that I really love that popped up from what we found. So the first one is actually technology. Technology actually showed up quite a lot, in all across the literature and in our findings. So, like Wi-Fi, television, tablets, smartphones, not as gadgets, but as bridges to the world outside, to family and to culture. So in a way, it helped people to connect outside socially in some situations. The other thing is that familiarity is, it sounds common sense, but sometimes it isn't. It's personal. Generic home-like design is not good enough. The home in someone's memory, might be a beach shack. It might be an apartment in Tokyo. It might be a farmhouse, in Tasmania. It could be a terrace, you know. Yeah. So good design needs to leave room for that. Um, and so what do we do? You know, if you're working in this space or providing care for someone who's living with dementia, it's important, um, to include these meaningful artifacts and bring it into their space. The sounds, the smells, the music, the photos. Yeah, so, working in care, treat familiarity as an intervention, not just decoration, because there are positive changes and there are clear impacts when these interventions are put in place. And if you're designing a space, plan for small scale, good lighting, appropriate lighting, familiar lighting, good acoustics, and personal expression. For somebody who may be a regulator or a policymaker, you need to look at your standards. Does it include a clear shared definition of familiarity at all? Because if we don't define it, we can't fund it, we can't train for it, or we can't build it consistently. So yes, so that's the episode for this week. So yes, so familiarity isn't fluffy. It's how care starts to feel like home. So yes. So thanks for listening. Take care of yourself and take care of each other, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you.